Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, February the 9th, 2021, and today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 102, 12 through 28, 2 Kings 8, 1 through 6, and Acts 15, 36 through 41. I'm going to look at Acts. I'm going to talk about paroxysms. Do you know what a paroxysm is? It's a paroxysm is an outburst, right? If somebody has a paroxysm, it's an outburst, but it's not just an outburst. It's a really angry, sudden outburst. It's sort of explosive. It's the kind of outburst that just catches everybody off guard it's around that witnesses it, just kind of really cutting and catch it's irrational, right? So a lot of times you see this when people, especially if there's no rational reason for their anger or their disagreement, they just can just explode because somebody's taken them to task or held them to task, take held them to account. I guess they just can't deal with that fact, right? That somebody dares disagree with them, and people generally have these all the time. Probably shouldn't say that you've never done that, because if you haven't, that's great. You probably will sometime. Because everybody has their bad days. Some people just seem to live in bad days. But anyway, but Barnabas and Paul in today's text, they have a little paroxysm of their own over John Mark. So they were both in agreement about the task at hand, the thing that they wanted to do. Paul thought it would be a good idea for them to go back and retrace their steps and visit the churches that they had established. He says, "Come, let us return and visit the believers in every city where we proclaim the word of the Lord to see how they are doing," and see how they were doing. Barnabas is like, "Yeah, cool. Let's take John Mark." John called Mark. All right. That's why I keep saying that. So they were both in agreement about the task, but Paul wasn't really keen on doing that. And he had his reasons for not really wanting to bring John Mark with him, this guy John, because basically he'd gone AWOL on previous missions, right? That's what it says. Paul wasn't really big on it because the last time they took him anywhere, he just kind of disappeared. It doesn't say why, John Wesley talks about it and says, it doesn't say if it was out of fear or laziness. He just abandoned the work is the language that Acts uses. He abandons the work. He's literally apostate in it, I think is what the Greek says. And so, yeah, he went AWOL. We're not sure why. We don't know what was going on. But Paul is basically like, yeah, we need to do this. I get it. I like John too, but we can't count on him. We can't rely on him. And they really needed people they could count on and rely on in this. If they're there to do this and disciple these churches, they don't need to be wondering about where's John. So we don't know why. We don't know what the deal was that he did. But Paul says, I don't think we need to take him. I don't think that would be a good idea. Barnabas seems to take it personally. See, John Mark was Barnabas's cousin. You can go see Colossians. There's evidence of this in Colossians. So Barnabas takes issue with Paul's rejection of him and the criticism of John's behavior. And it says in here there's a sharp disagreement between them and they parted ways. Well, the Greek word is paroxysmatai, which is the root that we get paroxysms from, right? And John Wesley talks about this text in basically the same way in two different sermons. And he really places the blame on Barnabas. He's like, the words that are being used here, it really seems like this is mostly coming from Barnabas. Barnabas is really kind of taking this personally and really hurt about this, and that's where the sharp disagreement lies. And so the way Wesley talks about it is that Paul makes a logical, rational statement about it, and Barnabas has this paroxysm, this fit, this outburst of anger, because that's irrational, because he's like, how dare you talk about my cousin that way. And so Wesley is interesting because he also goes out and points out that Barnabas's actions kind of prove that Paul was right, and apparently this willingness to just abandon the work runs in the family, because what does Barnabas do? He takes John and gets on a ship and goes to Cyprus. He's like, forget you, I'm taking John, we're going, we're doing our own thing. So and at which point Paul grabs Silas and they go do the work, right? So um like Wesley points out, apparently Paul was right. But that's not really the point of this. I'm glad you probably are glad I'm finally getting to this. Wesley blames the paroxysm, the whole outburst, on a failing of love. He's pretty consistent in these two references to it. In other words, he says the true, if anybody in this situation had true godly love, or if Barnabas had really been motivated by true godly love, that is charity, which is an interesting word. It doesn't mean charity as in dropping coins in the kettle at Christmas. Charity means loving the other for the sake of the other, or loving the other for God's sake, right? Um, and so he says, if there had been true godly love involved in this, it wouldn't have led him to abandon the work in anger, right? He wouldn't have just walked away because he was so angry because somebody disagreed with him, or somebody dared disagree with him, or because somebody had called his cousin on account. Um, so, paroxysm much? Have you ever had these? I mean, surely if you're honest with yourself, you could probably remember times in your life. Maybe you've gotten a control of it, and maybe you can think about things in your childhood. Good for you. I don't know that I trust that. But we have a lot of paroxysms lately. People suffer from this all the time. Um, have you ever left off important work due to this kind of thing? Because people have done things that have just jaded you, and it might be rational. Not rational in the sense of, logic, but it might be reasonable that you just lost your stuff because somebody made you that angry. But have you ever left off really important work because of it? I mean, it's a temptation, and I think it's a temptation that a lot of us have suffered over the past year. Um, and has the church's responsibility to do the work of Christ been left off because of a sharp disagreement that wouldn't have been if the parties were more charitable towards one another, towards each other, for Christ's sake? In these days, like I said, it seems a serious temptation and a big risk for individuals and for the church. Um, Paroxysms, they're not good. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Go forth, have a good day. We'll be back tomorrow. Boop your nose.